Hello, my fellow geeks. Welcome to episode number 61 of the Indian Av Geek. My name is Vishal Mehra. If you've been following the news this past week, you know aviation in India is moving faster than a Dreamliner with a tailwind. We couldn't have picked a more explosive week to sit down with today's guest. They say timing is everything in aviation, and today we are practically flying at Mach 2. Just days after the Maharaja and the Crane officially entered their era, we have managed to snag the man in the eye of the storm. He's a trained commercial pilot who eventually decided that selling seats was just as exhilarating as flying them. After a global tour that saw him leading teams in Spain, South Africa, Dubai, and the US, he is now the Senior Director for Regional Sales in South Asia. He is the man responsible for making sure Lufthansa's German efficiency meets India's soaring demand. Please welcome to the Indian Av Geek, Kevin Markette.
Michelle, good morning. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
And it is great to be with you too, Kevin. How did you and aviation happen?
So, I've had a long history with aviation. As far back as I can remember, I grew up close to airports. I saw airplanes pretty much every day. And that brought me into flight training, right? So I've essentially qualified as a commercial pilot. Flew single and twin engine aircraft. And I did that while I was growing up in South Africa. And, one thing led to another. And 25 years ago, that brought me to Lufthansa. And Lufthansa has been my home ever since, working in Africa, in multiple countries in Africa, spending a lot of time in the Middle East, a long time in the United States. And of course now in India, where I now head up the operation for the group as a senior director of sales. So aviation really is part of my blood, if you want to call it that. When I hear an airplane, I look up. I look it up, so to speak. So yeah, very, very passionate about the industry and feel very much at home here.
Terrific. And considering you're from South Africa, I'm sure there's a bit of cricket in you too.
There is, but a sensitive topic. Congratulations, India, because you beat us not too long ago. So yeah, cricket is also close to my heart. Absolutely.
Excellent. Please give us an overview of Lufthansa's India operations currently, Kevin, and how central is India to your long-term international growth strategy?
Yeah, Vishal, India is an incredibly important market for the Lufthansa Group, not just in Asia, but from a global perspective. So we currently operate around about 70 weekly flights from India to our hubs in Europe, being Frankfurt, Munich, Zurich, and Rome. And that really gives us the largest European network footprint of any carrier group, besides, of course, the national carrier, right? You look at our footprint in Europe, we have well over 200 destinations that we operate to in Europe. And of course, we're in a strong partnership with Air India, being the national carrier. So when you look at it from a global perspective, aside from the United States, which is obviously a very different market, India, I would say, comes in as our second biggest intercontinental market worldwide after the United States. And of course, that is a significance in itself, right? So the Lufthansa Group has been established in India for over 65 years. Our first flights to Calcutta were, I think, 67 years ago now. So a very long legacy. And India is an incredibly important market for the Lufthansa Group.
Good to know about the importance of the Indian market. I'm sure you'd like to open new stations. If bilaterals allow, which new stations would you like to open in India, and which stations would you like to see increased frequency from?
I've really only just started deepening my understanding of the Indian market. I've been here 6 months, but what's very clear to me already is the huge potential across the country. Right? You look at the growth of aviation in India, now the third largest aviation market globally. It's clear that the Lufthansa Group wants to participate in that growth together again with our partner Air India. So, two things. I think on the one hand, it's a little bit early for me to really point at a specific city as a future destination. But what I can tell you is we definitely intend to participate in the growth in India, on the one hand with our own frequencies, but of course, on the other hand, also with our partner Air India, where we're looking to further develop that market presence via code shares, and so give access to what we call second or maybe even third tier cities in the future. But watch this space. I think down the road, once I have a better feeling, growth is something that we look at as our fleet develops and grows as well. So maybe the next time we speak, I'll have a much clearer answer to that. But fact is, absolutely, we want to grow even further in India.
What are the key operational or regulatory constraints Lufthansa faces in India, Kevin? And, constraints that might limit faster expansion for you?
Yeah, as I've said, I mean, India is a hugely exciting market, right? And growth of any airline, and in our case, the Lufthansa Group, really is shaped by a lot of factors, right? One can be the bilateral agreements that we have no control over that are negotiated between countries, airport slots, regulatory approvals, etc. I would say on most of those topics, things are running quite smoothly. I think we see a very, very high level professionalism when it comes to all of those topics. One of our biggest, I would say, constraints, if you want to call it that, limiting factors right now, is just the lack of aircraft that we have in the Lufthansa Group. I'm sure you're very familiar with the delivery delays that are happening. And that's really one of the biggest topics that is holding us back, if you will, not just in India, but on a global basis. We're exploring, we're navigating, how can we sort of mitigate that, and doing certain things like increasing the gauge of aircraft, right? Instead of adding new aircraft because we don't have them. One example, for instance, is Mumbai, where we will be upgauging our Mumbai-Munich flight from an A350 to an A380. So effectively doubling the capacity, but not doubling the number of flights. Another, I would say, I wouldn't call it a limiting factor, but we're at the point where we've reached the limit of our allocated code share points with Air India. We'd like to see that grow. And we'd really like to see more access to those second tier cities. And these are topics that our teams are working on. And again, the bilateral agreements, they're in place, they're being renegotiated. The airport slots, I think we see a lot of development with airports in India. So things are moving in the right direction.
Kevin, I remember Bangalore being one of the first cities in the world to get the Allegris product. Swiss is receiving its first A350s with the new cabin, Senses. Will we see a prioritization of Indian routes, Mumbai or Delhi, for this new hardware, given the potential of the Indian market?
Vishal, yes. However, I think it's important to note that we currently only have one A350 flying with sensors on the Swiss fleet, right? So I believe it's operating the Boston route right now. And of course, there is a plan for that fleet development and fleet growth, as we just mentioned. Yeah. Of course, there will be additional long-haul routes that will be rolled out. At this point, it's too early to say which ones they will be. But I can tell you one thing, I am advocating for that to be India sooner rather than later. And if my voice has any bearing, then hopefully we will see that in, the near future, whatever that means. I mean, the aircraft are not coming once a week. But yes, we definitely intend to operate the Sensors product to India, really to reinforce that premium positioning that Swiss has and that reputation that Swiss has. Sensors will just take that to another level.
Senses and Allegris both are good hard products. But for years, the Indian frequent flyer community has wondered when an Indian traveler can book any Lufthansa flight and be 100% guaranteed a seat with direct aisle access in a premium cabin. With the 787 delay and the 748 split cabin, when do you think Lufty will be able to figure that out?
That's one of our biggest topics right now is our fleet modernization, and Lufthansa and the group itself is investing billions into this modernization, whether it's the new aircraft or the new product. Allegris, you've mentioned it. Um, in terms of India specific, my ambition, or let's say our current planning, it's not so much my ambition, is that by the middle of summer this year, we will have 3 of our India routes served by Allegris. That's the current planning. So we have 5 destinations in India, right? Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. And by summer, we will be operating Allegris on the Delhi Frankfurt flight, the Hyderabad Frankfurt flight. We don't fly domestically, of course. And also on Bangalore Munich, which you may know was one of the first Allegris destinations that we rolled out globally. And it was also one of the first where we operated the new Allegris first class too. So great perspectives, 3 destinations, 3 different routes by summer. And then as the 787 fleet grows, as the 350 fleet grows in Munich, and as the retrofitting begins on some of the other aircraft subfleets, we will successively see more and more of our India routes being upgraded, if you will, to Allegris. It's a big reinvestment, right? I think we're looking at a 3 billion euro investment into the product. So our customers are really going to be able to not just see and experience, but feel that premium development on Lufthansa, but of course also on Swiss.
A significant portion of India's trade and diaspora is in West and Central Africa. Lufthansa, of course, the group is, of course, very strong in that continent. Brussels Airlines, in particular, has a historically strong footprint. Are you seeing an increase in any way in terms of a double connect traffic, India to Europe to Africa? And are there any plans for Brussels Airlines to eventually touch Indian soil again with its own metal?
Right now, Vishal, of course, Brussels doesn't currently operate flights to India. They were in Mumbai for some time, a couple of years ago, and we don't have any immediate plans to reintroduce Brussels to the market. But what's clear is that Africa shows a lot of growth potential. Yeah, I spent many years in Africa working with the group and have obviously sort of lived that growth. If we look ahead specifically on the Brussels Airlines side, there are very clear plans to grow the Brussels Airlines long-haul fleet. And here again, it's a similar challenge that Brussels does not have any additional aircraft to launch new routes at this point in time. What they've done is they've strengthened a lot of the African routes by either increasing the frequencies or decoupling cities to have more direct flights. But clear plans definitely to grow the fleet. There is a fleet development plan, and that growth that will bring future and long haul expansion possibilities, right? So what we're doing from our side is keeping a close eye on the market, looking at the developments, looking at, as you said, that sort of long haul to long haul potential into African destinations to see how best we can fit in. Admittedly, geographically, it's a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, going via Europe into Africa, there are a lot of other connections possible, but it is something that we're looking at to see. Is there a market opportunity for us? And as Brussels grows their fleet, there's a possibility that we'll do that, but no concrete plans at this point.
Before moving ahead and talking about Air India, this is a quick reminder to some of our listeners who listen regularly. Thank you very much. But do not subscribe to the show yet. The right time, my friends, is now. Press the follow or subscribe button on your favorite app right away. Back to Kevin now. Kevin, in February 2025, you significantly expanded codeshares with Air India, you covering about 100 plus routes. However, Air India now is a much more capable Star Alliance partner than it was 5 years ago, right? Privatized and under the Tata Group leadership. Does a stronger Air India make your job easier by providing better domestic feeds or harder by competing for the same premium international passenger? From a passenger's point of view, should I fly, Air India to Frankfurt or should I fly Lufthansa to Frankfurt, right?
Air India has become a much, much stronger Star Alliance partner over the last few years, and the relationship between the Lufthansa Group and Air India has strengthened significantly. That creates valuable synergies for the Lufthansa Group, and that's an important aspect of our business in India. I think, what's clear is that their increased domestic feed across India really allows us smoother connections, wider choice of destinations for our customers, while obviously we still differentiate through our product, right? I mean, Air India has a differing product. They've got a great product. They're doing a lot of investments into it. But you look at Allegris, for instance, rolling that out on more routes throughout the summer of 26 and beyond, it really helps us compete against the other carriers, right? I wouldn't look at it so much as a competition with Air India. We work together. We have code-share arrangements between India and our main routes in Europe. But really together, we're able to compete so much better versus our mutual competition. And with those new products on the Air India side and on the Lufthansa Group side, I think we're well positioned for that. But as I said earlier, one of the things that we really want to focus on is expanding those code-share destinations on both sides, right? To enable easier access to a larger part of the Indian flying community. And, you know it better than I do, the number of airports that are being built in India is incredible. The number of people that are getting into airplanes for the first time is inspirational. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, but we need Air India to help us with that in India as much as they need us in other markets. So yeah, a stronger Air India is a good thing for the Lufthansa Group. That will also help us to grow the partnership, the Star Alliance relationship, which has a very, very solid foundation.
All right, let's talk about the other major Indian airline, Indigo. For years, Indigo has been a vital partner for Lufthansa, providing the last mile domestic connectivity in India. Now that they are flying directly into your backyard, they're flying into Amsterdam, Manchester, London, Athens now on the XLR. Does this change the nature of your agreement? And how do you balance being partners at home and rivals on the long haul? It's quite interesting.
Mm. And another Indian airline that is doing great things, right? So let me just clarify, Vishal, we don't have a code share agreement with Indigo. We do cooperate with Indigo just on a pure interline basis. But obviously, we're talking about two very different products, right? There are very, very clear fundamental differences. Indigo is really pursuing the current model of a low-cost, point-to-point, also long-haul, while Lufthansa really operates on a premium, hub-based network focus. Connectivity is the big deal, alliance benefits, etc. So we're not talking apples and apples, but having Indigo operate to some of the cities in Europe, and I would imagine we will see more and more of them in the future, doesn't necessarily mean we compete for the same customer. Yeah, we're quite comfortable operating alongside competitors like Indigo with different business models, and especially in a market like India that is mature, that is growing, where there is essentially an offer for every customer, and there is a customer for every offer. So I don't see, of course, there's a certain sense of competition, but again, we have a fundamentally different product, and also a different customer base that we are talking to.
Low cost, long haul. Fundamentally a different customer base. This reminds me, do you see potential for Discover Airlines to expand into India, Kevin?
Yeah, potential is certainly there. I've said it before, right? I mean, India is a hugely exciting aviation market. New airports, being built all over the place. Discover very, very similar situation with the fleet at the moment. I do believe that there is potential in the future. Yeah. Something that I'm in the process of analyzing for myself. I'm hopping on a plane down to the southern part of India today to one of the exciting cities. Let me go and have a look at it. Never been there. But I certainly think that the Discover product that is, by the way, it's just been awarded a 4-star rating by Skytrax, right? So we're not talking about a low cost, low value product here. It's a very, very high value product. I do see that there's potential to grow in India and within the region. But stay tuned. That's another one of those that I'll need a little bit of time to get a good feeling of, where may they fit into the picture.
All right. I'm going to stay tuned. As far as new airports are concerned, when will we see Lufthansa Group or Swiss flights from Noida Airport, considering it is managed by your friends at Zurich Airport? If I could do some guesswork, the airport should open in the next quarter or so. Do you see one of your planes taking off in the next year from there?
Right now, again, no current plans, Vishal, to operate to Noida. Of course, there's a second high-profile airport, right, Navi Mumbai, that's also already online. But we're closely looking at the developments. We're closely looking at how, especially an Air India positions itself in these airports, because, as mentioned, Air India is an important aspect or an important partner for us for the beyond traffic. So we'll keep a close eye on that in order to capitalize on the market opportunities. But what's important is we have great relationships with our existing airports as it is. We will develop equally great relationships, I think, with the new airports. But at this point in time, with our operations very strongly entrenched, in Delhi, for instance, at Indira Gandhi, I don't see any immediate plans to move across to Noida. But again, the pace of Indian development in the aviation sector is so fast. In a year, if we talk again, things could change. But for now, no plans.
Kevin, for a long time, the Lufthansa Group's stance on the A321 XLR was a firm no, right? Some have even called it a niche aircraft. But now, with Indigo and Aegean planning to fly XLRs into Europe and talks of an internal re-evaluation at Lufthansa, has the group's philosophy on narrow body long haul changed? Could we see an XLR in the colors of Austrian or Brussels Airlines flying into a city like Pune or Ahmedabad in the future?
The XLR is an incredible aircraft. Yeah, I mean, from my background of flying as well, I never flew an Airbus, but just the concept of having a single aisle twin jet being able to fly 9,000 kilometers is incredible. I'm not aware of any plans to acquire the XLR by any of our group airlines at this point. I know that the discussion has been ongoing, that the board has, from time to time looked at that as an option. What I do know is, within the broader fleet, we do have a couple of long-range 321s, I believe, flying with ITA at the moment. ITA is operating these on some reasonably long sectors from Rome to West Africa, I believe, to Dakar and Accra, which are good, I guess, 5-6 hour flights. I'm not aware of any key plans. However, the way that our aircraft companies, Airbus and Boeing, are developing new aircraft right now, it's really presenting interesting opportunities for the future. And I've got confidence that those colleagues that are in fleet planning, that are looking at the globe and the potential new dots on the globe, are looking at a 321 XLR or equivalent aircraft, maybe from Boeing, for possible future development. Obviously, I'd love to see new aircraft being able to open up new routes. We see other carriers doing it. But yeah, in the future, maybe something moves in that direction. It would be great to see that, and
Got
I
it.
guess it really has to fit into the overall fleet plan.
What's your current yield trend? RASM or RASK on India routes? Is it flat, declining, or recovering given premium cabin deployment?
It's very variable, Vishal, right? Because the destinations and the routes all operate with different aircraft, different fleet mixes. So there's no way to give a one size fits all answer to that. What we're seeing with the deployment of larger aircraft, like I mentioned on Mumbai Munich, obviously yield when you double the size of the aircraft, but the economy grows quicker than maybe a first class, which doesn't grow at all. The yield does have an impact, but it's not driven by a change in customer behavior or anything like that. It's really driven by the fleet deployment that we have. So I'd say we're very, very happy currently with the way our yield is developing on India. The currency is of course a little bit of a topic, right? The Indian rupee is devaluing, as we see with multiple currencies across Asia. That has an impact. But at the same time, with new Allegris cabins coming, with some new first-class destinations, I think we're relatively happy with the way that the yield on India is developing at this stage.
How much of Lufthansa's India revenue comes from transit passengers? They might be connecting via Frankfurt or Munich or Zurich or now even Rome versus OND, direct travelers on the India Europe routes. And are the yields different across these two customer segments?
Yeah, so transit is of course a huge topic for us, Vishal, right? I mean, our hubs, Frankfurt, Munich, and Zurich specifically, but Rome as well, are some of the world's leading transit airports. And of course, from India, we connect travelers all over Europe, but more importantly, also to the UK and across the Atlantic, right? So transit is a big topic for us. And it really means that our India services are designed as part of that global network, rather than a pure point-to-point operation. So obviously, I can't disclose specific revenue splits, but generally, that origin, destination, and connected traffic, plays an equally important role, with the yields varying very widely between the market and the cabin. Yeah, it's if you look at yields on let's say a North Atlantic business class connection versus a UK economy, I mean, there are huge differences, right? What really matters for us, I think, is that our hub model allows us to offer Indian customers unmatched global connectivity while maintaining really strong route economics, and it's the mix that counts. And that's really how the entire structure is set up. So transit, massively important. The addition of ITA bringing us the Rome hub brings additional transit opportunities. It is a huge part of our business.
Munich Bangalore was Lufthansa's first India route with Allegris. I'm just curious to know, what was the demand case to start from Bangalore? Was it driven by direct business demand, considering Bangalore is a tech corridor, or was it feeder traffic to Munich?
Yeah, I mean, Bangalore is considered to be sort of the Silicon Valley of India, right? With a huge focus on IT and tech and aerospace and various other sectors. So Bangalore will be a really, really important destination for us in India, also because it has a very strong focus on German business. So it's no secret then, why Bangalore was really one of the first post-COVID launches that we did, really driven by that strong demand. Yeah. And that's also what drove us to bring Allegris into Bangalore. Yeah, looking at the customer base that we have there, connecting possibilities through Munich and also through Frankfurt now that we have double daily flights with Lufthansa. And also the connections of the customers that we have in that market really fits perfectly via the Munich hub. So Bangalore was what's the colloquial word we use? A no-brainer, right? It was really a no-brainer for us. And over the last couple of years, we've successively increased our frequencies, upgauged our aircraft to the point that we now have daily Frankfurt on a 747, daily Munich on a brand new A350. And of course, it's let's call it one of the Allegris launch destinations. So Bangalore is hugely important for us. And it's one of the destinations in India I find myself quite regularly. I just wish the traffic was a little bit better down there. But
yeah, we all do. We all do, Kevin. Frankfurt Hyderabad represents Lufthansa's second new India route deployed with the 787 Dreamliner. Hyderabad is an aerospace technology hub, but secondary to Bangalore, of course, in Lufthansa's existing network. Again, what was the strategic rationale in operating to Hyderabad? Is this more about penetrating the market's growing outbound market, or maybe even about aircraft utilization?
Yeah, we do have the new Dreamliner on that route, Vishal. It's currently operating 5 frequencies a week. And it's an Allegris aircraft. Yeah. So Hyderabad has Allegris 5 days a week at this point, which is fantastic for us. Hyderabad is also a very, very sort of strong IT, but also pharma-focused destination with a very, very strong traffic flow across the Atlantic. So I think Hyderabad was launched as the second destination post-COVID, I believe. So really not secondary to Bangalore, right? I mean, really on an equal footing to Bangalore, at least from that perspective. And it's, I would say, another strategic sort of southern Indian destination for us. The fact that we deployed the 787 on that route pretty much from the beginning, well, from the beginning when the 787s came into the fleet, yeah, let's put it that way, really shows that it's an important market for the group. We have strong local demand. And again, it's a Frankfurt connection, which shows or which emphasizes that importance of the North Atlantic connectivity. It's timed to really fit perfectly to, the Bostons, the Houstons, the San Franciscos, the New Yorks, the Chicagos, what have you. So I haven't made it to Hyderabad yet, which is a shame. I need to get down there pretty soon. But we have a team down in the south that is doing fantastic work. Really giving our customers access to the best product that we have through our biggest hub, and then onto wherever it is they need to go. So Hyderabad, very, very important destination for us, and one where we'd probably be looking to grow in the future as well.
How many Miles and More members you have in India right now, Kevin? I'm a points and miles nerd myself. I also want to know what's the status of the FFP ecosystem in the country. What kind of partnerships can we expect in the future?
I'm glad you asked that, Vishal, because yes, it's a big topic for us. And Miles and More, really sees India as an important growth market. So we are continuously expanding that program in terms of just, the member engagement, but also the relevance and the product offer. You mentioned credit card. We've actually just come out with a new credit card, Miles and More co-branded credit card with Axis Bank, I believe it is. It's literally brand new. Yeah, it's literally brand new. So I don't think that information has really got into the market as much as it needs to. These credit cards, they offer exceptional value and benefits. It's not just one. We have 2 different cards with differing benefits, right? So the classic sort of premium card and a standard, if you want to call it that. We really see this benefiting our Indian customers. because now you can earn miles not just by flying on Lufthansa Group flights, but by buying, your everyday products on these credit cards. Important topic, and I think there's the need to really message that more strongly, because it is a great offer out there. But I think if I look forward, how do we want to position or additionally position these benefits? Really, it's really by, yeah, I mean, how would I say? I think building a broader ecosystem around that, right? Looking carefully at what are the partnerships that we have across lifestyle, for instance, right? Lifestyle is a big topic in India, but always with the aim of adding tangible value for our members rather than just pursuing the scale for its own sake, right? We're not there to get pure numbers. We want value behind those numbers, but we want value for the customer as well. But this Axis Bank credit card, I think, is a great starting point. There's going to be more coming in the future.
How are you managing the complexity of different aircraft types on India routes? Are there operational challenges with A380 ground handling at Indian airports? I also wanted to know what's been the feedback you've got from passengers flying on the A380. Do you see the trend of passengers specifically opting for A380 flights?
I think there's always a novelty to that, Vishal, right? And with respect to Tim Clark, of course, their 380 fleet is slightly different to ours. And on the Lufthansa side, that novelty, honestly, we see much more strongly on our 747 fleet because of the legacy of the 747. And that's also one of the reasons why our 747-8 fleet will get a retrofit to the new product. Customers love it. Personally, I love it. Yeah. And if I had to choose between the 747 and the 380, I would choose the 747 7 days a week. The 380 is also a customer favorite, no doubt. And our fleet is I think it numbers eight aircraft that have been reactivated post-COVID. They're all flying out of Munich. Operations to India, yeah, can be challenging based on airport facilities, right? Not every airport can handle an A380. We have it on Delhi, Munich, absolutely no problems, very smooth operation. Very happy with that, and customers love it out of Delhi. I can tell you that flight is full, regularly. We're bringing the second A380 into India, into Mumbai, I believe it's in July. And yeah, there's a lot of work to be done ahead of time in terms of, the planning to be able to operate an A380. And I think a lot of customers may not understand all of the technicalities involved, right? For instance, it requires specific catering trucks to be able to get the catering to the upper deck. Not every catering truck can do that. It requires special gate areas with jet bridges, in order to be able to board and deboard the aircraft on time. Engineering, qualified maintenance engineers, etc. So there are some, I wouldn't call them challenges, they're operational requirements. Mumbai is on track. We are ready to go, bring on July as far as I'm concerned. Not that I want to miss out the first half of the year, but we're excited to be bringing that aircraft in. Future deployment of additional A380s, I think based on the fleet size that we have, I'm not too sure we'll see more into India, but again, that can change. And the way our airports are growing in India at, world-class infrastructure, I don't see big problems if we were to look at A380s to other destinations in the future. But for now, I'm really happy that we're doubling the number of 380 destinations in India. There's only one other country worldwide that has more than one A380 flight today. That's the United States. So, I feel pretty good about that.
We were just talking about the 747 and the whole romance around it as far as flying is concerned. There will be a time in the future when the 748s and the 380s will go out of service, right? Do you think the A350-1000 or the 777X can take the mantle of a flagship aircraft for an airline group like yours?
Yeah, Vishal, I think the 777-9 is, on paper, a fantastic aircraft. We haven't seen one. We don't have one flying yet. So whether or not this aircraft can take over the position of, the main aircraft bolstering the fleet, remains to be seen. I think it is from a capacity perspective, it is a large capacity aircraft. It has an intercontinental range. It's going to have, our newest products on board. Will it replace the same nostalgia or feeling of a 747? I don't know. Yeah. But I do think that once we operate that new aircraft, it's going to have a very important place within the fleet of Lufthansa. It's going to have a very important place in our long-haul network. And I'm quite sure that over time, as new aircraft are developed, that sort of queen of the skies or king of the skies motto is going to change over time, right? If you think way back in the day, the 707 was considered, the biggest and best aircraft around. Times change and obviously the technology moves. So yeah, I think very important place in the fleet of the Lufthansa Group for the 777-9. We should be getting the first one, Jeffrey, correct me, this winter, I think, or early next year. I'm not sure of the exact date. And again, that probably will change. But yeah, very excited to be able to bring yet another new aircraft fleet into the group.
Kevin, what an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so very much, and best wishes to you and the Lufthansa Group.
Vishal, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. And we have a few points to follow up in a couple of months, right? So I look forward to a follow-up conversation at some point.
And that's a wrap on a high altitude episode 61. A big thank you to Kevin for giving us a front row seat into how one of Europe's biggest carriers is betting big on India. Next Sunday, it is the turn of the Indian Ad Geek, episode number 20, and it is going to be all kinds of Wonderlabful. Kevin is not active on X, but you will find me everywhere, including Blue Sky, as @Vishal1Mehra. Happy to have your feedback. With that, keep your tray tables up, your seatbelts fastened. I wish you well, and happy flying, my friends!